The Book of Destiny. Translation of Kitab-ul-Taqdeer. Author: Ghulam Ahmed Parwez. Translated by Dr. Ejaz Rasool. Glasgow, UK. ISBN number 9798884207042. 15 Chapter 15, The Day of Death is Prefixed. Is this a reality, or is it merely poetry? The belief which prevails among us is that it is a fact that the age of every individual is pre-written, and there can be no increase or decrease in it of even a second. Until the time of death does not descend on someone, no one can kill him, and when Ajal, the appointed time, arrives, then no one can stop it. And not only death, it is even already written down about illness that it will come at such and such a time, and then will disappear at such and such a time, or will kill the invalid. 15.1 Our belief and our practice. But just look at those who hold this kind of belief. When illness visits them, they run around for its treatment. If the disease becomes a bit prolonged, they change the treatment. They repeatedly inquire, "Oh doctor, when is the temperature of the child going to go down? He is becoming weaker by the day. Give him some such medicine with which the fever can break quickly, and if it is felt that the invalid will not get better, then the degree to which efforts and strivings are made for this are regularly witnessed by us, the most renowned doctor after another. One expensive medicine after another, supplications to Allah, donations and offerings, prostrations at shrines, requesting prayers from saintly men. What is all this for? It is so that the invalid can avert death. At this time no one will say that the day for death is appointed. It cannot come before this, and if his time has come, then your 1,000 treatments and potions, and thousands of prayers and offerings cannot postpone it by even a second. If the patient survives, they will claim with considerable pride that we initiated this treatment and made that effort. And if he dies, then it will be said that we tried everything, but he only had this amount of time ordained for him. What remedy can there be for death? And at that time no one asks them. Nor do they themselves think that when death was going to surely arrive at its appointed time, then what was to be achieved from all this effort and striving? Why was all this done? That is the belief, and this is the conduct in practice. And it is the contradiction between belief and practical conduct as a result of which nations become destroyed. From this neither strength in intention is created, nor firmness in implementation. One can never shoot a target with trembling hands. The reason for this belief is stated to be that because of this the human heart becomes at peace from fear and anxiety. He does not fear death, immense courage and limitless valor become created in him. This is why soldiers are informed and taught that the bullet on which your name is not written can never touch you, and the one on which your name is inscribed, you cannot save yourself from it, but together with this they are also instructed to make full arrangements for your own protection. Never put yourself in danger deliberately, they are told about that belief, while they are taught this conduct. 15.2 Death is for everyone. The machinery of the human body functions according to the physical laws of Allah and its movement ceases according to these same laws. The ceasing of the movement of this machinery in this way is called death. Death has to come to everyone who breathes. 3. 185. Wherever you are, death will find you out, even if you are in towers built up strong and high. 4. 78. You cannot run away anywhere from it. 62. 8. So much so that it is stated even about Rasulullah. They, opponents, will die, and so will you die. 39. 30. 15.3 The meaning of death as by Iznallah. The literal translation of the verse in Surah Al-Imran is as follows. Death cannot come to anyone without the command Izn of Allah, this is such an ajal which is ordained. 3. 145. In this verse the words izn, kitab, and ajal merit attention. The Quranic meanings of these words have previously been explained in detail. In chapter 6, you will see from there that the meaning of izn is the law of Allah. The meaning of ajal is an interval or duration, and the point at which that interval ends is also termed ajal. And the meaning of kitab is that of a code of laws. According to these meanings, the interpretation of the above-mentioned verse is that life and death are under the obedience of the law of Allah. The intervening period, ajal, between the birth and death of man is called his lifespan, and this period or duration is defined according to the law of Allah. For every period and duration there is a law. 13. 38. When the final moment of this period arrives, which is called death, then there can be no increase or decrease in that time. 63. 11. This means that the moment when the lifespan of a human being comes to an end is what is actually called death. Hence the question does not even arise about this moment whether it has come sooner or later. The question is whether or not there can be a decrease or increase in the interval between birth and death, which is called the lifespan. 15.4 Can a lifespan be reduced or increased? We utter these kinds of words every day but never pay any attention to what they mean. For example, we remark that he lived to a ripe old age, or that he died at a young age. Long or short, or similar kinds of words, are relative terms. For example, we ask someone to bring a stick which is 1 yard in length. If he brings a stick which is 4 feet long, then we say this is too long, and if he brings a 2-foot stick, then we say it is too short. In relation to long and short, more or less, or increase and decrease, a scale needs to be set, and these words can be said according to this scale. Now consider that when we remark that this individual has lived a long life, what is meant by this? From this is meant that this individual has remained alive for longer than the age to which people among us generally live. The average age of people of a country or nation is called the physical lifespan. And this fact is not hidden from those who possess knowledge. That nations increase the physical age among their population through adhering to hygienic principles of health, a balanced diet, taking preventive measures against diseases, and by raising the standard of living, etc. And are continuing to increase this. Compared to them, the physical lifespan in those nations which do not pay attention to these matters is relatively shorter. As with nations, the state of individuals is also the same. Those people who take care of their health, and keep an eye on those means and resources through which the machinery of the body functions smoothly, live to a longer age. If no accident takes place, and those people who ruin their health through their own hands die early, so much so, that the one committing suicide can end his life whenever he desires. The Quran has described this reality in these words. Neither does anyone get a long age, nor is there any reduction in the age of anyone, except that it occurs according to the law. 35. 11. It is obvious that if the lifespan of every individual had been fixed in advance, that is, it had been written down even before his birth that his life will be this long, then as a result the question of an increase or decrease in his lifespan does not even arise. For example, Allah has decreed about an individual that his age will be 50 years. After this decree of Allah, Taqdeer, it is impossible for him to die before reaching the age of 50, or to remain alive after this. The possibility of an increase or decrease in age is only possible when a lifespan has not been predetermined. Furthermore, the verse mentioned above provides evidence for this fact that lifespans are not determined in advance. Physical life is lived according to physical laws. By living life in accordance with these laws, man attains a longer life. By going against these, he reduces his lifespan. It should be made clear that when we talk about physical laws, then inherited traits from parents, suitable protection and nourishment of the foetus in the mother's womb, after birth, its diet, and taking care of its hygiene, general social conditions, causes and effects of mental health and balance, access to a health care system, Measures for the prevention of accidents, etc., all of these are included. 15.5 The scales. Laws governing death. These are the scales according to which lifespans are determined. In the words of the Quran, we have established for you scales for death. 56. 60. Whatever kind of scale any nation or individuals desire, they can choose it for themselves. For this it has been advised that make not your hands contribute to your own killing. 2. 195. Just reflect that if the time of death was already fixed, then what was the point in giving this counsel? Then also reflect that if it had already been decided that a certain individual is going to die at a certain time on a certain day in a certain way, then why should an individual who kills someone be declared to be a criminal? According to the Quran, murder is a very grave crime for which the punishment is the death penalty. But if, as per Taqdeer, the death of the victim was going to take place at his hands like this, then what fault is there in this of the criminal? The Quran has differentiated between premeditated murder and manslaughter. Someone's death occurring in error or unintentionally at the hands of someone, and has proposed different punishments for them. In the case of killing in error, blood money can be accepted, while for premeditated killing a punishment is given. 4. 92-93. It is also obvious from this difference between premeditated killing and killing in error that in this instance the criminal is held responsible. If all this is predestined, then what is the crime of the criminal, and what is the purpose of the differentiation between the two? There will be further discussion about these matters further on. Now let us move a step further than even this. It is cautioned in Surah Al-Ma'idah to remember that whoever kills even a single person without haqq, other than in the case when the punishment of the death penalty has been given to him for the crime of murder or treason, fasad, consider it as if he had killed the whole of humanity. And whoever bestows life on any single person, saves his life, consider it as if he bestowed life on the whole of humanity. 5. 32. If the day of death is predetermined, then how can anyone save the life of another? The possibility of killing someone or saving his life can only occur in that situation when these matters are not decided in advance. And this is the reason that even soldiers entering a battlefield, who are prepared to die, are instructed to carry full protective gear with them for their safety, and to take all kinds of precautionary measures. 4. 71. So much so that it is even instructed that during a time of danger, adopt this posture for collective salat, that one group is included in the gathering, while another group stands behind to provide them with protection, and after one prostration, that group steps back to stand, while the group providing protection should participate in the gathering. 4. 102. It is obvious that if a soldier is not going to be hit by that bullet on which his name is not written, and he simply cannot escape the bullet on which his name is written, then these kinds of protective measures become meaningless. 15.6 Becoming fearless of death by Iman bil Akhirat. Now the issue which remains is, how can the heart of man become at peace from fear and uncertainty, and how can he overcome the fear of death? For this that doctrine of life and death needs to be examined, which the Quran presents with such clarity and detail. That doctrine is that life is not just this physical life, its process also continues after death. Life, by passing through its evolutionary phases, reaches the human form. At this level, the ability to traverse further evolutionary stages of life becomes created in the individual who lives life according to the program proposed by the Quran. The next arena of these evolutionary stages commences after death. The process of life and death is created for this very purpose, so that you can test to what extent ability has been created within you for traversing further evolutionary phases of life. 67. 2. Now just ponder that. According to that doctrine, that death is the gateway to manifesting a far broader life. loftier status, extremely beautiful possibilities, will death then be something to fear for the possessors of such a doctrine? He will endeavor to protect the existing life so that he can gain even greater opportunities to awaken his potentials, and for further strengthening of his self. And when, after this, death appears in front and lifts the veil from this spectacle where the most dazzling beacons of life will be displayed, then he will leap forward and embrace death. These are those eminent individuals, possessors of Iman and Salih deeds, about whom Iqbal has said. Besides other attributes, the sign of a man of Haqq is that when death arrives, there is a smile on his lips. The student who, following success in an exam, moves on to the next class, he does not have any regrets about leaving his former class, indeed he celebrates this occasion. 15.7 Status of those laying down their lives on the path of Allah. The list of deeds of life through which human potentials are developed is very long. The principle is that when there is a tussle, tie, between some physical demand of life and a permanent value, then at that time preference should be given to the permanent value over the physical demand. The more attractive, dear, and valuable the physical desire is, the more this deed will be weighty. In the demands of physical life, the demand for self-preservation, protection of life, is the most intense and valuable. When such a time comes that even life has to be laid down for the protection of a permanent value, Haqq, the Quran declares that such an individual should not even be called dead. In fact, only he is alive in reality, but you cannot encompass this reality at the existing level of consciousness of physical life. 2. 154. Iqbal defines this with ishq, based on permanent values, and states that, how can I explain the status of death and ishq? Ishq is eminent death. Dead life is devoid of eminence. This is that iman due to which the heart of a mu'min becomes the abode of a fearless flame of courage like lightning, and he leaps valiantly into the fire lit by Nimrod because he knows that, if the self is alive, then death is just one phase of life. Ishq tests the strength of the self through death. He does not await the defined moment of death like helpless dust, instead in the tussle between Haqq and Batil, he calls out to death himself, so that by meeting with it he achieves eternal life. It is his iman that sometimes life is just about living, and sometimes it is about sacrificing life for a higher purpose which is called living. If the time, place, and mode of death was prefixed, then why would the Quran instruct these mujahideen to take the lives of their opponents, and lay down their own lives for the sake of Haqq according to its program? 16 Chapter 16, The Plight of Women. While addressing the Tului Islam Convention held in March 1966, I had presented an article titled Khuda Ki Marzi, The Will of Allah, which became very well received. At the beginning of this, I had stated as an example that Nur Khan's wife bore 4 daughters one after another. On the arrival of each girl there was mourning in his home. After the birth of the 4th daughter, at the insistence of his parents and relatives, Nur Khan formed the intention to marry for a second time. His wife prevented him by imploring him 1,000 times. At that time he stopped, but warned his wife clearly that if a girl is born again, then he will definitely marry for a second time, and just see the misfortune of the poor woman, a girl was born again for a 5th time. The wife of Nur Khan was reeling from waves of shock, and was suffering from palpitations of the heart, but all the family members were angry with her. Her husband would not even come anywhere near her. She remained lying on a bed, weeping constantly. Women from her street and community would visit, and console her that this is all dependent on the will of Allah. He bestows boys on whoever he wishes, and bestows girls on whoever he wishes. There is nothing to be gained by your tears and weeping. When Allah had written it to be like this, then who can erase it? Just be patient and grateful and bear this trouble. Whatever Allah does is always good, He is the Master and can keep us in whatever state He desires. The Messenger Suleiman once had a complaint which he kept in his heart, for that he had to stoke a stove with fire for 12 years. Hence, do not bring any such complaint on your tongue. He is free from all concerns. 16.1 Mourning at the birth of a girl. What the correct meaning is of Allah bestows girls on whoever He wishes, and bestows boys on whoever He wishes, we will address this later. To begin with, let us probe what the reason is for this melancholy that descends on a household when a girl is born, and this melancholy does not just affect uneducated families. Even in extremely civilized and educated households the situation is that one odd girl is fine and nothing is said. But if the situation is such that there are 3 or 4, then even their tears begin to be shed, and even if these tears are not shed, the heart is certainly heavy. No matter how often the husband may repeat that we do not make any distinction between a boy and a girl, a distinction is definitely made. The question is, why is this distinction made, and why does the arrival of a girl become a cause for heavy-heartedness? There is no doubt in this that one reason for this is economic. In our society women are economically dependent on men, and the thought of the immense hardships which are faced in the search for a suitable match for marriage for girls, and in order to meet the sky-high demands from the prospective groom's side, makes the parents of a girl despondent. After this, if the marriage is not successful, and the girl returns to live with her parents with a few children in tow, then this calamity is also no less heart-rending. 16.2 A woman is considered lower in status. But the reason for this mourning is not just economic, its basis is something else, and that is that a woman is simply considered to be of a lower status in comparison with a man. The question is whether a woman is of a lower status than a man simply due to being a woman, or is this belief an invention of man? 16.2.1 The status of a woman among the religions of the world. Hindus have not even included woman in the category of human beings. They have declared her to be a commodity which remains in the ownership of someone or other. If she is a daughter, then she is in the ownership of her father; if she is a wife, then she is in the ownership of her husband. And if she is a mother, then she is in the ownership of her son. She cannot be the owner of anything. Whatever is given to her is given as dawn charity. As far as her being a wife is concerned, at any one time a woman can have several husbands. Hence, it is stated in the Mahabharata that Draupadi had 5 husbands, and they lost her in a bet during gambling. According to the narration of the Puranas, 7 rishis 208 married Narasai. 10 Brahmin brothers by the name of Parchita all married a woman by the name of Darkishi at the one time. These brothers were also rishi of Vidun. Since the Hindu religion is formulated by the Shastra Brahmans, hence special privileges are awarded to Brahmans in this. Thus it is noted in Atharva Veda, also in Rig Veda, that if a woman already has 10 non-Brahmin husbands, and a Brahmin takes her hand, then he alone will be considered as her husband, because only a Brahmin is the master of women. What the status of a woman becomes in Hindu society according to their dharam, religion, under these circumstances is obvious. 16.2.2 The position of a woman according to the Torah. It is said among the Jews, in the Torah, that God created Adam, man, following which he began to be sad as a result of loneliness. In order to entertain him, God created Eve from his rib cage, that is, the real aim was to create only man; woman was created for him as a toy. Then woman fell into the deception of Shaitan, and by misguiding Adam, she caused him to be expelled from paradise. 16.2.3 According to Christianity. Among Christians, according to this same fictional tale, woman is considered to be the source of all evils. And it is said that a human child is born together with the sin of his first mother and father, for the redemption of which there is no other way than by belief in the atonement of Jesus Christ. Due to being the source of sins, woman is considered among them to be so worthy of hatred that even touching her is viewed as a cause for becoming stained. This is the reason that their saints live a life of celibacy. So much so that in the initial era of Christianity, there was a sect by the name of Valesians, who by self-castration used to enter the category of those near to God. It is the belief of Christianity that a woman cannot enter paradise. From this the difficulty then arose about what was to be done regarding Maryam. In order to resolve this issue, it was stated that in the hereafter all women will be turned into men, and in this way the one who is to enter paradise will enter as a man. Saint Paul used to make this teaching commonplace that, man has not been created from woman, woman has been created from man. Therefore, according to law, woman should remain at a lower status compared to a man. If you look at the religious literature of Christians, such a repellent picture of woman is drawn in this that disgust is triggered from its image. 16.2.4 According to philosophers. Stepping aside from the world of religion, let us turn to the domain of philosophy, in which the same kind of treatment will be seen to be extended to woman. Aristotle, who is considered to be the grandfather of philosophers, used to present this philosophy that woman happens to be inferior to man in every respect. So much so, that he used to say, man has 32 teeth in his mouth and there are 28 in the mouth of a woman. He had such firm conviction in the truth of this philosophy of his that he never even troubled to open the mouth of his wife, and see how many teeth are in it. It was his maxim that, all we need to understand about the character of a woman is that a deficiency has remained in the program of nature. Plautist used to say, this question simply does not arise in the case of a woman that someone should say that I will select a good woman, in this selection every other woman will turn out to be worse than the previous 1. These are, in any event, tales from ancient times. Rousseau, who in the modern era introduced Europe, rather the world, to human rights and the concept of democracy, used to say, woman has only been created for this purpose that she should remain obedient and subservient to man, and bear his injustices. Up until the 19th century, the research of scholars of the West was that in ancient times the first animal who was domesticated by man was a woman. It was only yesterday that during the era of Queen Victoria, when women in England began a movement to acquire their rights, the Queen made this announcement in a great rage. Bear in mind, not a male king, but a female Queen herself. That it is the heartfelt wish of Her Majesty the Queen that every one of those scholars who can write or say something to stop this insanity and ridiculous demand of these women should become the hand and arm of the Queen. This issue is so provocative and inflammatory that Her Majesty the Queen cannot contain herself. God has created man and woman as different entities, hence women should not exceed their confines. And in this regard, what more is there left to say? H. L. Mencken writes that, the concept of love has been invented to inculcate the false notion that one woman is different from another. This is an illusion, all women are alike. C. O. Skinner says, the most fantastic of inventions of the human mind is this idea that there is also some good in a woman. In the modern era, the United States of America is said to be the most advanced nation. And the belief about woman there is that she happens to be very independent, and that there is no discrimination made between men and women there. In front of me at this moment in time is a magazine from there. In one sense a representation of the opinion of the government. Titled Dialogue, Volume 3, Issue Number 4. 1970. In which the direction of all the research is that women should not be considered as being the equivalent of men. 16.3 The Proclamation of the Quran. This is that position which women have been continuing to receive from the direction of men. The fact is that no animal in the world has done to its partner what man has done to his life's partner. At the advent of Islam, Christianity was reigning in the world, and the sentiments of degrading and viewing women as inferior had reached to an extreme intensity. It was into this that the Quran arrived, and it proclaimed with full force that all these ideas are concocted by men themselves, they have no relevance to reality. Man and woman are both human beings, and both a man and a woman are included equally in those characteristics which are possessed by a human being, and the eminence and dignity which a human being possesses. Your Rab commenced the creation of man from a single cell and from this created male and female. 4. 1. When the fountainhead of their life is one, then how can there be any differentiation with respect to their birth? It is true that in physical life, biologically, their roles are different, but that difference is only in the distribution of tasks, not of eminence and dignity. As far as human potentials are concerned, those exist equally in both, and from this respect whatever one man can become, the other woman can become too. 16.3.1 Men and women side by side. Look at this illuminating verse of Surah Al-Ahzab, and then reflect how the Quran shows men and women working together, shoulder to shoulder, in the arena of life. It is declared, if men possess this ability that they can obey the laws of Allah, then women also possess this ability. If men can become members of this Jamaat, which by having iman in the truth of these laws becomes responsible for the peace of the world, then women can also become its members. If men possess this potential that they can maintain this capacity such that it is employed for the divine program, women also possess this potential. If men are capable of demonstrating their proclamation of iman through action, then women are also capable of this. If men can remain steadfast, then women can also do this. If men are capable of this, that as their abilities keep developing, they bow even more before the laws of Allah, then women are also capable of this. If men have the potential to sacrifice, then this potential also exists in women. If men can manifest such self-control that from wherever they are asked to desist they do so, then women can also do this. If men can keep their sexual proclivities within the limits defined by Allah, then women can do this too. If men are able to understand the laws and keep these constantly in their sight, then women are also able to do this. It is obvious that when all these potentials are present equally in men and women, then their outcomes should also exist equally for both of them. Therefore, Allah has prepared a great reward and maghfirat for all of them. 33. 35. Look at these explanations of the Quran, and then reflect about which aspect of life is it stated that although men have this ability, women do not, or that a man has a greater ability for this and a woman has less. This is why the Quran has declared that the salih deeds of both men and women will produce results equally. And whoever among you does salih deeds, whether a man or a woman and is a mu'min, they will enter Jannat, and there will not be the slightest reduction in their deeds. 4. 124. 16.3.2 Equality in rights and responsibilities. As far as the life of a husband and wife is concerned, from the legal point of view the Quran has announced that, according to procedure and law, however many the responsibilities of women are, they have a similar number of rights as well. 2. 228. Although in one matter men are allocated a different position, and that is that in the case of divorce, or on becoming a widow, a woman cannot marry again during the period of iddat, whereas a man can do so. And its rationale is obvious, that if the woman is pregnant, then there should be no confusion in relation to the paternity of the child. 16.4 The aim of marital life. As far as this belief which is prevalent among us is concerned, that men are rulers and controllers of women, and that men have the right that they can also beat their wives, this will be discussed further on. At this juncture we only wish to present one point before you. The Quran has declared the following to be the aim of marital life, so that tranquility and rahmat and love become created between you. After this it is stated that those people who use their intellect and reasoning will find signs in it to arrive at the reality of this. 30. 21. With even a little reflection and reasoning, this fact can become apparent that if the belief and assumption about a husband and wife is that the husband is the ruler over the wife, is a warden, that the woman should remain obedient and subservient to him in every circumstance, and that if she does not do this then the husband can also beat her, Then in this kind of relationship and conduct can a bond of mutual affection be established, and can an environment of peace and rahmat become created in the home? Though the relationship of coercive ruler and helpless subject can be formed from this, the relationship of companionship and love can never be created. From this arrogance and supremacy continually on one side, and on the other side feelings of an inferiority complex, fear and harassment can arise, but feelings of harmony and mutual understanding, companionship and unity can never become created. Hence, according to the Quran, this belief is batil, that man has any superiority over woman, that woman happens to be inferior compared to man, and that the relationship between husband and wife are that of a governor and the governed. Man and woman are both members of humanity and equal possessors of human potentials. As husband and wife, their rights and responsibilities are similar, and their relationship is that of affection and companionship, for which equality is a fundamental condition. When someone is considered inferior to oneself, and the other considers herself lowly in comparison, a relationship of companionship can never be associated with them. 16.5 What happened after this? This was the teaching of the Quran in this regard. But when? After this, Muslims sidelined the supreme book of Allah. Whatever beliefs and concepts were prevalent in other religions about women, these infiltrated among them one after another and gradually became a part of Islam. Such a technique was adopted for these which has already been mentioned, that is, false hadith were concocted and were attributed to that eminent being who was the greatest flag bearer of human rights and supreme proclaimer of the equality of human beings in the world. First of all, this belief was replicated from the Torah, Old Testament, that Allah created Adam first, that is man. But when he began to feel lonely, then in order to eliminate his isolation, his wife was extracted from his rib. 16.5.1 concocted a hadith. It is noted in the tafsir of Ibn Kathir. It is mentioned in Sahih Hadith that woman is created from a rib, and the topmost rib is the most twisted of all. Hence if you try to make it completely straight, then you will break it, and if by keeping some twist in it you wish to take advantage from this, then you can draw benefit. In Sahih Bukhari there is a narration from Abu Hurairah that Rasulullah said that if Bani Israel had not existed, then meat would never have become rotten, and if there had been no Eve, then no woman would have been dishonest towards her husband. There is another hadith from Bukhari that Rasulullah said that after me, there will be no fitna which will be a greater cause for harm to men than women. In another hadith it is narrated that Rasulullah said that a bad omen is contained in three things: woman, house, and horse. It is noted in Bukhari's Kitab-ul-Anbiya that Rasulullah said that I saw Jannat and the majority there were paupers, and I saw that in hell women were in the majority. Numerous narrations of these kinds were entered into the books of a hadith. 16.5.2 The Tafsir of Ar-Rijalu Qawwamuna 'ala an-Nisa. In relation to this, as far as husband and wife are concerned, there is no dearth of those kinds of a hadith either in which man is affirmed to be the ruler and warden. Such a hadith were initially fabricated, and then a tafsir of the Quranic verses was compiled in accordance with them. It is in this connection that this verse of Surah An-Nisa is presented with great intensity and emphasis, in which it is stated Ar-Rijalu Qawwamuna 'ala an-Nisa. 4:34. And which is commonly translated as men are wardens over women. Whereas its meaning is that since the majority of the time of women is spent in the bearing of children and their rearing and upbringing, while men are free from these omitments, hence keeping the distribution of tasks in mind, this principle is proclaimed that providing the means of sustenance of life to women is the responsibility of men. According to the Arabic language, this is the true meaning of Qawwamuna 'ala an-Nisa. For the sake of making its meaning to be that of a ruler and warden, it is claimed as the reason for its revelation. Shani Nuzul. That a woman complained to Rasulullah that her husband has slapped her. Rasulullah had just given the order for retribution when this verse was sent down, and Rasulullah had to withdraw his decision. In another hadith it is narrated that Rasulullah said, Do not beat women. After this Umar came to him, and pleaded that upon hearing your command, women have become emboldened against their husbands. On hearing this, Rasulullah gave them permission to beat them. Now widespread beatings by men began to take place, and many women came to Rasulullah complaining. On this, he said to the men that those people who beat up women do not do good. But when he wished to allow women to retaliate, then this verse was sent down. Hence, it was this command which remained, that since men are rulers over women, they can beat them. Thus, Ash'at, reported to be a companion of Rasulullah, states that he was once the guest of Umar, when it chanced that there was a harsh exchange between husband and wife, and Umar beat his wife. Then he told me that, Ash'at, remember three things which I have heard and remembered from Rasulullah. One is this, that a man should not be questioned on what account he has beaten his wife. Secondly, to not go to sleep without saying witr, part of namaz at night. And the third item the narrator was unable to recall. And not only this, that men are appointed as rulers over women. But there is also a hadith in which it is narrated that Rasulullah said that if he could have commanded anyone to perform prostration before someone other than Allah, then he would have commanded a woman to prostrate before her husband. 16.5.3 Narrations attributed to Ali. In the book, Na'i al-Balagha, these kinds of narrations are attributed to Ali, the companion of the Messenger, that he said, O people! The beliefs of women, their share, and their intellects are flawed. Therefore, stay away from women of bad character, and also remain wary of the virtuous ones. And also do not obey them even in righteous deeds, so that they do not expect your compliance in bad deeds. At another place it is narrated that he said, Woman is a well-socialized scorpion. If you remain with her, then there is certainly pleasure, but she never hesitates to sting. And also that woman is an evil from head to toe, and the even greater evil than this is that you cannot do without her. But on the one hand there are these kinds of fabricated ahadith, while on the other hand it is also narrated that Rasulullah said that paradise lies beneath the feet of a mother, as if a mother is not included among women. These kinds of ahadith were fabricated during our era of Malukiyyat, when the situation was such that women were sold in markets. Ahmed Amin Misri writes in Zaha al-Islam that during this era, in Baghdad the commerce of slaves and concubines was commonplace. One bazaar was even called Shari Darul Raqiq, the bazaar of slaves. Those engaging in this kind of commerce were called nakas. This word was in fact used for those who dealt with the sale of cattle. Later on, it began to be applied to dealers in slaves and concubines. There used to be an inspector appointed over them from the government, who was called Qayyim al-Raqiq. In the harem of Caliph Mutawakkil, there were 4,000 concubines based on mut'a. The philosophy of mysticism arrived among Muslims from Iran, but they learned the doctrine of monasticism, Maslak-e Kankayat, from Christians. What the status of women was among Christians, we have seen some of its reflection earlier. Therefore, even Sufis among us preferred a life of celibacy, like Christian monks and Hindu yogis, and used to declare woman as being the source of all evils. Ali Hajwari, Data Ganj Bakshir, writes that the origin of the first fitna in paradise, which became the fate of Adam, was woman. The first and foremost fitna which appeared in the world, that is, the fight between Habil and Kabil, Abel and Cain, its cause was also a woman. And when Allah wished to punish two angels, Harut and Marut, its cause was also declared to be a woman. And today the root causes of all dini and worldly fitnas are also women. 16.6 The state of our civilized society. In light of these descriptions, just reflect that the nation in which these kinds of ideas are prevalent about this inferior commodity, if grief is not felt at her birth, then will there be celebrations and joy. And if by suffering from an inferiority complex, she will not feel ill-fated, unfortunate, and luckless, then what else will happen? It will be said that we have now become educated and civilized. Hence these kinds of ideas no longer exist about women. This claim of being educated and civilized may well be justified and correct. But we venture to inquire that this demand that takes place in our very educated and civilized families for a dowry consisting of a bungalow, motor car, and a great deal of money in return for the very beautiful, educated, well-mannered girl selected to be brought in as a wife or daughter-in-law, what does it indicate about our beautiful outlook regarding woman? By doing this we have sunk to an even lower level than that of the era of ignorance. In that era, when a woman was acquired by being purchased, then some payment was made for her. Now when we acquire a woman, we also demand millions of rupees together with her. Then examples of the condition that becomes of woman due to our prevalent laws, which are unfortunately called laws of Shariat, can be found at every step. According to these laws, man always possesses this right that whenever he wishes he can divorce the woman and turn her out of the house. In contrast to this, even if 1,000 cruelties are visited on her, she has to knock at the doors of courts in order to gain freedom from the tyranny of a cruel and unjust husband. And at the thought of how these wretched, honorable ladies are dealt with there, these victims prefer to die at home through slow suffocation instead of seeking justice. Even if they somehow gain freedom after thousands of humiliations, then the question of how to spend the rest of their life becomes a further source of severe distress for their soul. In this the economic issue is not the only cause for anxiety, the question of protection and honor also becomes a cause for the creation of 1,000 fears. In our society the roof of a man is considered indispensable for the security of a woman. Even if a woman somehow makes arrangements for her physical security, this apprehension always creates an underlying fear that if at any time a scoundrel spreads around any accusation about her, then she will not be able to show her face in society, and preventing the slanders of scoundrels is never within anyone's control. This is, however, an issue further down the line. Nowadays it is becoming commonplace among us that an innocent, simple girl is going to school or college, and thugs kidnap her on the way. Even after this innocent and simple victim is retrieved by her parents after many hurdles, she no longer retains any worth. The remainder of her life is spent in hell, and this is in penance for what crime? Allah had stated to the backward Arabs who used to bury their innocent daughters alive, that, say, when this female child will be asked, for what crime were you killed? 81. 9. Then what will be your reply to this? But in our society innocent and victimized girls themselves ask Allah, and this is not an imaginary fictional tale. These kinds of girls themselves ask me this question: what crime did we commit that you created us as girls? And what did our brother do that was so great that you created him as a boy? But they do not get an answer for this from anywhere. The Brahmin had at least invented an answer to this, that this is the punishment for the sins of your previous life, for the carrying out of which Brahma has made you a woman. You may scoff at the irrationality of this logic, but just reflect, what is the logical outcome of the answer which is received from your own quarter? The answer which is provided from your side is that this is the will of Allah. He can make whoever He wishes a boy, and whoever He wishes a girl. He can confer respect on whoever He wishes, and can humiliate whoever He wishes. You cannot ask Him why He did it like this. Just think to what conclusion this logic takes man. The rationale of the Brahmin may be wrong, but there is no accusation levied on Brahma himself due to that. The view of him, Brahma, is that of a just being who allocates a status in the new life for men according to their deeds, but the kind of view of Allah which appears before us from your reply, we do not have the courage to bring it on our lips. 16.7 Wrong use of the example of the system of nature. This response is given by our class of religionists, and verses and a hadith are quoted in support of it. Then in further support of them, rationales are also presented from their own minds. And those are along the lines that the creation of male and female is necessary for the completion of the creative program of Allah. A cow has no right to question why she is made a cow and not a bull. Furthermore, it is also part of the program of nature for some of creation to be superior and for some of it to be inferior. A donkey does not have the right to complain why it is not made an Arabian stallion. These programs of nature are justified and correct. But those presenting these kinds of rationales do not even reflect that they are presenting examples of animals, and here we are talking about human beings. If they possess the ability to think, then why would they even present such absurd rationales? There is simply no awareness of respect and humiliation in animals. There is no feeling of superiority and inferiority in them. Neither the bull has the sense that it is superior to a cow, nor is the cow conscious of being inferior to the bull. The stupidity of a donkey is a well-known saying, but no donkey has the sense and consciousness that it is a donkey. Contrary to them, man is a possessor of consciousness and also aware of this. And when we say human, this includes both man and woman. When Allah had declared that we have created mankind as worthy of respect and dignity. Taqdeer 17:70. He did not state that he has created men as worthy of respect and dignity and not women, or made some kind of differentiation in this Taqdeer. Remember, making something the reason for the humiliation and degradation of a conscious and sensitive being, that is, a human being, for which he is not responsible, and over which he has no control to change, nor any possibility of rectifying it, does not suit that Allah whose decree is that we do not do injustice to human beings. 29. Any kind of differentiation between one individual and another from the point of view of birth cannot be the work of Allah, Rauf Rahim. These differentiations and discriminations are inventions of ours, and we feel neither any fear nor any shame in relating these to Allah. If our beliefs and concepts are in accordance with the Quran and our society is shaped on Quranic values, then there will be neither any scenes of mourning in households at the birth of a girl, nor will a woman have to weep over her kismat. For the performance of natural duties of life there is a biological difference between a man and a woman, but there is no impact on the status as a human being between a man and a woman as a consequence of this difference. For this, the principle is this: the rank of everyone will be defined according to their deeds, conduct and character. 46:19. Whether man or woman. 3. 195. The difference which exists between a man and woman for the performance of natural duties, in this too nowhere is it said that according to this men are superior to women. It is stated that in certain matters men have an edge over women, and in certain matters women have an edge over men. 4:32. Therefore, none among these species should think that because the other has different roles, how I wish that I had had that characteristic, or why did I not become that. Nowadays, because woman is the victim, hence, sighing deeply, she muses how I wish I could have been a man. And those nations in which at some point in time women were in a position of authority, a matriarchy, at that time man must have been musing how I wish that I had been a woman. Through the equality of man and woman, the Quran ended both these disquieting sentiments. According to the Quran, the attributes of conduct and character became the reason for distinction and honor, not gender discrimination. We do not know when man who is engulfed in self-deceptions will rise to this level of the Quran. 16.8 The birth of boys and girls. As far as the birth of boys and girls is concerned, in verses 42, 49 to 50 of the Quran, Man Yasha is translated as whoever Allah wishes and Qadirun as he has control over everything. And based on these, the verses are translated as Allah gives girls to whoever he wishes, and gives boys to whoever he wishes, or gives both boys and girls, and keeps childless whoever he wishes. He is the one who knows everything and is in control of everything, if there is no kind of differentiation in the status of a boy or girl, due to merely being a boy or girl, or there is conceived to be no disadvantage, then there can be no issue with the translation whoever he wishes. But if a differentiation is kept between the two, which has been explained in detail earlier, then from whoever he wishes an objection can definitely be levied, which has been presented in the form of a question by the repressed girls. According to the Quran, as already stated, there is no difference in status between man and woman from the point of view of being human. Furthermore, the meaning of man yasha is that the matter of progeny can be understood according to the law of Mashi'at of Allah. As far as being infertile is concerned, Allah himself has explained in the account of Zachariah that his wife was infertile, and this is why he had given up any hope of progeny. But after that, the Quran stated that defect of his wife became removed, and a son, Yahya, was born to them. 21:90. Nowadays, infertility, both of the man and woman, can generally be treated. This is because man has understood the law of Mashi'at of Allah, law of nature. In this matter, and further research is taking place in this field. As far as the birth of either a boy or girl is concerned, there is also extensive research being carried out in this field in Europe. It is stated in Surah Al-Imran, shape is given to the foetus in the mother's womb according to the law of Mashi'at of Allah. 3:6. According to this research, it has been established to date what that law of Mashi'at of Allah is, according to which the shaping of the foetus, as male or female, takes place within the womb of a mother. Now they are busily engaged in researching how to make changes in these constituents, based on which the sex of the foetus is determined according to this law of Allah. Their claim is that if this research is completed, then it will be possible to give birth to a boy or girl according to one's choice. When Allah had declared that He has kept the potential in man to acquire knowledge about all the things of nature. 2:31. Then from this is meant that this ability is kept within man, that, whatever laws of Allah are functioning in the domain of Khalq, which are called the laws of nature, he can acquire knowledge about all of them. And when he can acquire knowledge about them, then according to these same laws, by changing the composition of the created constituents, he can also give them ever new forms according to his desire. The number of varieties that man is creating in plants and animals are all before us. Therefore, if he claims that by acquiring knowledge of the law of Mashi'at of Allah, a boy or girl can be conceived according to one's wish, then it will be the manifestation of a link in that characteristic according to which Adam was declared to be deserving of prostration by the Malaika. 2:34. The law of creation of Allah is immutable. 30. And these kinds of changes are possible only by acquiring knowledge of this law. In this way man is gradually becoming the Taqdeer of Allah himself, but this is just the status as Adam. When Adam also brings his own self within the obedience of these laws which have been bestowed via Wahi, the Quran, then he will reach to the stature of a Momin, and there is no limit to the heights of the stature of a Momin. In the words of Iqbal, can anyone imagine the power in his arms? Taqdeers transform from the gaze of a Momin.